somewhere between silence and thought. There are stories that don't need to be seen. They rise in silence, drift through the dark, and settle where the mind is most open. This is where they begin. In 2010, the city of Bradford, England, found itself at the center of a true crime story so horrific, so grotesquely calculated, that it rattled not just the community, but the nation. It didn't start with a bloodbath. It started with silence. Women, always women, began vanishing from the city's red light district. No forced entries. No dramatic escapes. Just quiet disappearances in a place already steeped in poverty, addiction, and resignation. These weren't headlines. Not at first. They were murmurs. Conversations between outreach workers, whispered warnings among women on the street. First one was missing. Then another. Then another. Most people didn't notice. Those who did assumed the worst and moved on. But inside flat 33 of a low-income building called Holmes Court, the worst had already begun. Behind its thick, cigarette yellow walls lived a man who didn't just fantasize about murder, he studied it, dissected it, practiced it like a student preparing for finals. That man was Stephen Griffiths. A doctoral candidate in criminology, Stephen didn't look like a monster. He wasn't a recluse in a shack or a raving lunatic on the street. He was articulate, clean, wore glasses, took pride in his intellect. He spent his days reading, writing, attending seminars, and his nights building a private empire of horror, one murder at a time. He would later dub himself the Crossbow Cannibal, and he believed every crime he committed was a step toward greatness. Stephen Sean Griffiths was born on December 24, 1969, Christmas Eve, in Dewsbury, West Yorkshire. A quaint, unremarkable town of red brick homes and grey skies. There was nothing extraordinary about his upbringing on the surface. His father worked in the telecom industry. His mother, a homemaker. No dramatic abuse, no tragic deaths. And yet, from an early age, Stephen stood apart. As a child, he was unusually solitary. Teachers described him as intelligent but odd. He avoided games, avoided eye contact. He'd sit at his desk staring, unblinking, through the window for minutes at a time. When asked questions, he'd respond mechanically, as if reciting lines from a script. Other children kept their distance. Not because he was loud, but because he was strange. Stephen didn't act out. He watched. Silently. Intently. And when animals started disappearing around the neighborhood, birds at first, then the occasional family cat, no one connected the dots. He kept a small notebook in his pocket. No one knew what was inside. Later, authorities would find dozens of them, filled with lists, names, methods, crude diagrams, killers' nicknames. He wasn't fantasizing about being a soldier or astronaut. Stephen wanted to be a serial killer. By the time he hit his late teens, Griffith's behavior had curdled into something darker. He had no romantic interests, no close friends. What he did have were obsessions, ritualistic, disturbing fixations on violence, death, and domination. He began frequenting second-hand bookstores, collecting biographies of notorious murderers, Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, Andre Chikatilo. He didn't just read them, he studied them, annotated their motives, compared their victim counts, underlined favorite quotes. Some teenagers decorated their bedrooms with band posters. Griffiths lined his walls with police diagrams and newspaper clippings about cannibals. At 21, he committed his first recorded violent act. He entered a local supermarket and attacked the store manager with a hunting knife. No robbery. No real motive. Just violence, raw and sudden. The manager survived. Griffiths was arrested. A judge called him a sadistic and dangerous individual. But instead of prison, he was sent to a psychiatric facility. The diagnosis? Severe personality disorder, narcissistic traits, antisocial tendencies, no empathy, no guilt, no ability to relate to other human beings. Still, the mental health system deemed him manageable. He was released within a few years. What followed was nearly 2 decades of eerie silence. Griffiths seemed to vanish from the public eye. He drifted between low-paying jobs, abandoned most attempts at socialization, and settled into quiet isolation. But behind the scenes, his mind was still very much occupied. Neighbors would later describe strange behaviors. He rarely left his flat during daylight. He was seen carrying garbage bags at odd hours. One neighbor recalled him outside at 3 a.m., feeding pigeons while reciting something under his breath. Others noticed the music, loud opera followed by death metal. Sometimes both, alternating in the same night. And then there were the pets. Griffiths kept a collection of reptiles in his flat. Lizards. Snakes. Some say he even had rats. He fed them irregularly. Not from neglect, but seemingly out of curiosity. He was seen dropping live prey into their tanks, watching closely as they attacked. Neighbors called him Lizard Man. No one reported him. No one really wanted to knock on that door. By the early 2000s, Griffiths made a calculated return to the world of education. He enrolled at the University of Bradford, pursuing psychology, then criminology. Professors described him as intense, somewhat aloof, but brilliant. His thesis? A deep dive into serial killers, their rituals, their origins, their psychological patterns. In lectures, he would often quote his subjects verbatim. He once stood up in a discussion on psychopathy and delivered a 2-minute monologue from Dahmer's court testimony. Some students were impressed. Others, disturbed. When asked what he wanted to do after completing his PhD, Griffiths once answered, "I want to get into the mind of a killer so completely that I can walk in their footsteps." Everyone assumed he meant research. Analysis. He didn't. Holmes Court. A squat, concrete block in Bradford Center. The kind of place people pass without looking. Rent was cheap. Walls were thin. Neighbors came and went. And no one asked questions. Stephen Griffiths moved into flat 33, alone. Inside, the space was bleak. Gray walls. Peeling wallpaper. A sickly sweet smell that neighbors occasionally noticed but never reported. Blinds drawn day and night. From the hallway, you might hear strange sounds, metal scraping, low chanting, loud orchestral music played at full volume. Inside, Griffiths had built his laboratory. Books on serial killers lined every shelf. Crime scene photos tacked to the walls. A corkboard covered in names, timelines, disposal methods. A collection of knives, bone saws, dissection diagrams, and notebooks, hundreds of them. Each one filled with scribbles, sketches, quotes, calculations. It was a killer's workshop. Griffiths wasn't improvising. He was planning. He'd learned from the best, Dahmer's lures, Bundy's charm, Chikatilo's brutality. He had created a system. And in 2009, he was ready to test it. Susan Rushworth was 43 years old. A mother. A grandmother. She'd fought heroin addiction for years, but she was trying, checking in with social workers, attending recovery groups, reconnecting with her family. That morning, she left her flat in the Little Horton area and told her son she'd be back soon. CCTV caught her walking toward Bradford's red light district. And then, she was gone. Police were slow to act. Susan had a record. She'd vanished before, they said. Probably went back to drugs. Moved to another town. No urgency. No search teams. But her family knew better. Susan never went more than a day without checking in. Days passed. Then weeks. What no one knew was that she had walked into flat 33. Griffiths later described Susan as his trial run. He didn't provide full details, but he admitted to killing her inside his apartment, likely with a blunt object. A hammer, maybe. He dismembered her, wrapped the remains in bin bags, and made several nighttime trips to dispose of the evidence. No remains were ever recovered. He kept a token, an article of clothing, folded and stashed in a drawer. The media didn't cover her story. No public pressure. Just another disappearance in a forgotten part of the city. Griffiths watched. Waited. Took notes. And realized he could do it again. In the months that followed, Griffiths grew bolder. He refined his routines. Observed more women. Spoke with them longer. Learned their fears. Their schedules. He began carrying small recorders during conversations, then replayed them at home, studying speech patterns, tracking vulnerability. He also started filming himself. Practicing introductions. Posing in front of mirrors. He tried different voices. Facial expressions. Rehearsed lines like an actor preparing for a scene. Some nights, he spoke directly to his camcorder. He called himself the Advanced One. The city, meanwhile, remained unaware. Police had no suspect. No leads. Outreach programs assumed Susan's case was cold. Her name faded into whispers. But Griffiths hadn't forgotten. He was planning the next chapter. 10 months after Susan's disappearance, another woman went missing. Shelley Armitage was 31. A fighter. Friends described her as feisty, sharp-witted, a survivor in every sense. She struggled with addiction, yes, but she was hopeful. She still talked about her dreams, becoming a model, escaping the street, maybe opening a salon one day. That evening, CCTV footage showed her walking with a man down Thornton Road. Calm, smiling. Her companion wore a long black coat. Thin, tall, glasses. A face known in passing, but not in fear. That man was Stephen Griffiths. He led her into flat 33. Inside the apartment, Griffiths had staged the room like a set. He'd cleaned meticulously, set up lighting, mounted a camera on a tripod. His tools were arranged neatly on a metal tray: knives, scalpels, restraints. He filmed everything. He posed Shelley, called her his plaything, took Polaroids before and after the act, wrote notes as he worked. On a pad beside her, he scribbled, "My sex slave." The killing was methodical, not impulsive. He treated it like a study, observing how her body responded, timing his actions, repeating phrases out loud. When he was finished, he dismembered her, limb by limb, washed the tools, then began disposing of her in small bundles wrapped in bin liners. Some parts went into the river Aire. Others, police suspect, were incinerated or dumped in undisclosed sites. He returned home, cleaned up, made a final entry in his notebook. Success. Full cycle complete. When Shelley didn't show up for her nightly check-ins, outreach workers raised alarms. Friends reported her missing within 24 hours. A local paper ran a brief mention. For the first time, whispers turned into worry. Police started reviewing CCTV, combing through recent contacts, questioning regulars in the district. Griffiths stayed calm, but his need for recognition boiled over. He began posting cryptic messages online. Using aliases, he dropped hints on crime forums, quoting known killers, referencing the disappearances. In one post, he wrote, "They never see it coming. Most of them are already dead before they scream." He wasn't hiding. He was teasing, preparing for his finale. Suzanne Blamires was 36. Bold. Street smart. She was known in Bradford's red light district as someone who looked out for others. She kept people laughing, always carried herself with a sense of dignity even when life tried to break her down. That day, she encountered Griffiths. What happened next was captured in grainy, silent CCTV footage that would haunt police officers for years. Suzanne is seen bolting down the hallway of Holmes Court, barefoot, frantic. She pounds on a neighbor's door. No answer. She turns back. Griffiths emerges behind her, calm, holding a black crossbow. He lifts it, fires. The bolt strikes Suzanne in the back of the head. She drops instantly. He walks over, grabs her by the wrists, drags her limp body back to flat 33. Before disappearing inside, he looks up at the camera and flips it off. Peter G., the building's caretaker, reviewed the tape the next morning. He immediately called police. Within hours, armed officers stormed flat 33. They expected resistance. They found calm. Griffiths opened the door, hands raised. He said just one thing: "I am the Crossbow Cannibal." Inside, Investigators found a scene so cold, so surgically disturbing, that many had to be rotated off the case for trauma counseling. The room was organized, tools cleaned, shelves labeled, video footage neatly stored. Griffiths had recorded multiple segments, clips of Shelley Armitage's murder, close-up stills of body parts, narrations delivered like a university lecture. There were charts tracking victim behaviors, audio tapes, manifestos about power, control, and human evolution. He referred to himself not as a man, but as the apex predator. In the days following Griffiths' arrest, divers searched the river Aire near Shipley. They recovered 81 pieces of human remains. Suzanne Blameyer's parts were wrapped in industrial plastic. Others were weighed down with stones. There were clean saw marks, some consistent with medical bone saws, others with hacksaws. Pathologists confirmed the obvious: dismemberment post-mortem, blunt force trauma. There were indications, unconfirmed, of cooked tissue, which Griffiths claimed to have eaten. He told investigators with a flat voice, "I ate part of her. Cheek muscle. Real or theatrical, it didn't matter. The damage was already irreversible." The nation watched as Stephen Griffiths was brought into court, hands cuffed, expression blank. The judge asked him to confirm his name. He replied calmly, "I am the Crossbow Cannibal." The courtroom fell into silence. This wasn't a man in denial. He wanted credit. He wanted to be feared. Griffiths was evaluated by multiple forensic psychologists. Their findings painted the full horror. He was narcissistic, antisocial, and entirely without empathy. He saw people as objects. He described his victims as specimens. Told doctors he believed himself to be evolutionary advanced. One report noted, "He does not kill for pleasure. He kills for ideology." On June 21, 2010, Stephen Griffiths pleaded guilty to the murders of Susan Rushworth, Shelley Armitage, and Suzanne Blameyers. He showed no emotion. As the details were read aloud, graphic, personal, devastating, he sat still. No flinch. No regret. The judge gave him a whole life sentence. He would never be released. He nodded, as if he had been waiting for it. Behind him, families wept. One mother whispered, "He destroyed more than her. He destroyed our entire family." At HM Prison Wakefield, known as Monster Mansion, Griffiths was isolated. He remained violent, assaulted guards, threatened suicide, launched hunger strikes. He wrote letters to journalists and criminologists, hoping for a response. Most were never opened. He had dreamed of infamy, of documentaries, of a book bearing his name. But what he got was a cell, a number, and silence. There were no more interviews, no more headlines. Just him, alone, and the weight of his own voice echoing back at him. Susan Rushworth, Shelley Armitage, Suzanne Blameyers. 3 women, 3 lives that mattered. They weren't just names on a case file. They were mothers, daughters, sisters. People with laughter and flaws and resilience. and they were taken by a man who saw himself as a god of his own dark mythology. What makes this story truly terrifying is that Stephen Griffiths wasn't a shadowy figure in the alley. He wasn't a monster from a horror film. He was educated, calm, calculated, a student of crime who became a practitioner. And while his name may fade from memory, we remember the silence he left behind, the absence, the lives erased, and the haunting truth that sometimes the most dangerous people look just like everyone else. This was the story of Stephen Griffiths, the Crossbow Cannibal. And just like that, the story fades, but the echoes may stay with you. If a thought stirred or a memory flickered, share it with us. And if you're still awake, subscribe for the next shadow to drift in. Until then, let the quiet take over.